feel like every time we do this, I need to make sure I say we're live.
Right on.
So, okay, we're back. We're live. Live, pre-recorded, live, whatever. But anyway, it's Being Humanist. I'm Mike.
And I'm Keith.
And we have...
Hi, I'm Justin.
We have Justin, our special guest Justin, with us today. And again, just like last week, I gave an excuse that there will be times where my voice or Justin's voice will sound distant because we have one mic between the two of us. So deal with it. Anyway, Being Humanist, things are going good. You can find us, send us an email, as always, at beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. YouTube at youtube.com/beinghumanistpodcast, no dot. And Twitter. Keith decided to sign up.
I think it's turned into Mike's.
Keith decided to sign us up for Twitter, and I'm the one using it. And that's Being Humanist PC. I don't know if it really matters on the capitalization, but it's Being with a capital B, Humanist with a capital H, and then capital PC. So Find us at Being Humanist PC. And I think that's everything. Is that everything?
I believe so.
We're on iTunes. I think most of our listeners are iTunes listeners as it is, which is cool because I don't think we really have to promote very much. It just kind of happens for us. So yeah. Anyway, since we have our friend Justin with us today, I figured. I mean, we always give the guests a chance to give us their origin story, but we don't. I don't know if you noticed before we get too far into this. I've never actually mentioned where I work.
Oh, yeah.
So, going to university is fine, just on the pretenses of making sure that I don't blow my cover completely. But Justin and I, well, actually, all three of us are very well acquainted with the same place, which is how we all are connected. A particular university in Indiana.
That narrows it down.
Well, everybody knows that we're kind of in this north, Indiana
North
place.
Central.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's plenty of universities in the vicinity.
Right.
But anyway, so yeah, we all kind of know each other through the same place, and well, I guess without further ado, I'll just go ahead and hand the mic over and let Justin talk, and then I'll hit him if he goes too far.
All right.
All right.
Welcome,
That's
Justin.
really humanist of me.
Thank you, fellas. I'm super stoked to be here. I didn't realize that you guys add the theme in post. Yeah. And I told Mike last week that I think the theme is really badass.
Ah, nice.
When I first heard it, I was like, that is definitely an Anthrax song. Like, I was stoked. And every time I hear it now when there's a new episode, I get like a little giddy. It's just I love it. It's one of the better ones because there's this other show I listen to called Atheistically Speaking, which is pretty good. It's pretty much like the same format here, that has a really lame like acoustic thing and a girl that talks over it. It's really lame sounding. It's not as cool.
No offense to you guys.
No offense to you guys. Like, I love your podcast, but your theme is a bit dodgy. So please change that. Anyway, I've been an out atheist for about 5 years. I became an atheist when I was 19. An out atheist anyway. Excuse me. Like Mike, for the most part, I had a completely secular upbringing. My parents were, they were the kind of folks that were like, if you want to go to church, that's fine. But if you want to sleep in later, we'll go to Golden Corral. That was kind of the way that it went. And as I kind of got older, I started to sort of learn more about things. But God was always this sort of weird thing that everybody sort of believed, but I didn't understand it. I didn't get that part. I was never a child that had like a revelation or fantasies or anything like that. I never had anything like that. When I was growing up, Garfield comics and pro wrestling meant way more to me than religion. I think the first time I ever really became exposed to it was my sister. My sister's about 5 years older than I am, and she had what I would call in the mid to late 90s, she had what I call a brief flirtation with Christianity, which she mainly did because she was like, it was a social event and people who were her friends, and she was sort of in the upper echelon of the high school, so that was kind of how it went. But she got baptized, and so did my mom. They both got baptized on the same day, and my father and I were sitting in the pew. My dad and I looked at each other, and we just felt weird. I've always felt weird in church. Always, without question, I always feel weird. It's just not my. It's like I'm just ready to like catch in the flames. Like it's just how
You're ready to be smited.
Yeah.
exactly. Like I'm just ready for it to be like brought on. Quick aside story: I went to see Richie Havens a few years ago before he passed away, and he played at a church in Purdue, and. When I was sitting down, I hit my foot on a pew and I went, Jesus Christ! And then I looked up, and right there was a giant tapestry of a bleeding Jesus, like staring into my soul, if I had one, staring into my soul. But anyway, so I never got that. I never understood that idea of God. I never understood the idea of religion. And so when I entered my teen years, I moved up here. Where I live now. When I was 14, my mom and dad got divorced. My dad and I moved in with my grandma. And that was really where I became a skeptic. Matt Dillahunty, who's the former president of the Atheist Community of Austin, he always says that my atheism is a result of my skepticism. And that's me. When I was 14, I was exposed to a television show by the comedian magic duo by the name of Penn and Teller, who were absolutely monumental in my life. They are the reason I'm an atheist, without question.
Penn would love to hear you say that too.
I met Penn Jillette last summer in Las Vegas. I went to see the show, and I told him all that, and he was like, he really appreciated that. We got a picture together. I also got a picture with Teller.
I need to see that.
It's pretty cool. I got him on my Facebook. Just check him out. I got my Las Vegas photos. I went out there specifically to meet them, and I want to go back sometime to go to the amazing meeting, because I want to do that at least once while Randy is still alive, James.
Oh, yeah.
So I got exposed to Penn and Teller's bullshit. And Penn and Teller's bullshit was monumental in my life. It changed everything. It changed my view of the world. It changed the way that I viewed evidence. It changed the way that I viewed everything, from religion to politics to everything. And then around the same time, I had a 7th grade English teacher that told me, he said, never say anything without defending it or backing it up with something. And that stuck with me too. So skepticism was sort of ingrained in me. So that was a big thing. And then as I got a little bit older, usually my flirtations with religion surrounded around girls. There was a girl I was dating who was a fundamentalist Christian, and I found out later, and so I tried to sort of be Christian for her. But me being Christian sort of was tantamount to listening to Bob Dylan's gospel records. Like, I sort of thought that if I could get into Slow Train Coming, gotta serve somebody, I thought if I could have that, then maybe I could be religious. Well, then that sort of fell away. Then I dated my current girlfriend and got really into the Beatles, and I was really into George Harrison. Yeah. And then from that, I listened to sitar music and Ravi Shankar and all that stuff. Got obsessed with it, and that was where I got interested in Buddhism. And then I read a book, or tried to read a book, called Becoming Enlightened by the Dalai Lama. I got about halfway through and recognized that it was complete bullshit. Because basically the whole book is, the key to happiness is enlightenment, the key to enlightenment is happiness. It's a lot of circular logic.
So it's full of what Daniel Dennett would call deepisms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They are, without a question, deepities. Without question,
deepities. There you go,
Yeah.
deepities.
They are definitely deepities. And so that sort of died down. And then I was pretty much an agnostic or like a deist. I sort of balanced between the two. And then I got interested in theology from an English class that I took. And then I was really, really interested in theology when I read the Da Vinci Code as a kid. And so I was obsessed with the idea of Jesus Christ being a real man who had sex with a woman and actually had a line of descendants. I was obsessed with that idea. Obsessed with it. I thought it was like the Holy Grail thing. I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And so I read.
Yeah.
So I tried to read the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which is what it's based on, the whole line.
I have that book and I couldn't finish it.
And I had a really hard time. I had a really hard time getting through it too. I did a tremendous amount of hard time getting through it, and I recognized like there really isn't any good evidence. At best it was like what you would call like circumstantial. Like it's not, none of it's really strong. And then I got into college, and I was sort of back into Penn and Teller again. Got really into James Randi of the James Randi Educational Foundation. For those of you who are interested in them, I think his website's randy.org. Awesome stuff, $1 million prize for anything that you can prove that's cult theistic and supernatural in scientific setting. I love that he called the late Sylvia Browne out on Larry King Live. So he's like, so you want the $1 million prize, right? And she tried to evade. And he's like, no, seriously, I've got $1 million set aside in treasury bonds. We can give it to you. And she, no takers. But anyway, so 19, I get to college, and from there I read Christopher Hitchens' book, The Missionary Position, about Mother Teresa. And that really exposed the lies of the Catholic Church and the fact that the Catholic Church is the only institution, for the most part, in India that doesn't publish its accounts publicly. Neither is Missionaries of Charity, which is what Mother Teresa did. And then from there, I sort of read all the atheism books. I started getting into them. And I read The God Delusion. I read Letter to a Christian Nation. I read, and then the other thing that was really important was getting into Ayn Rand. I am a former Ayn Randian libertarian guy, and Ayn Rand was monumental because of her atheism. And I sort of was like, I don't believe any of this, and I became an atheist. And I told my dad, and I told my grandma, and they said, okay, that's fine. Told my mom, and she's like, okay. And then I told my girlfriend, she's like, that's okay. And I was very fortunate to have a social network in my life that was very supportive of my decision to come out about it, which is great because not very many people have that.
Yeah.
Not very many people have that. I mean, I feel so bad for people like you who had to live through that.
It's okay.
That's got to suck. Like, because, people, you'd think that in a society like America where we have a marketplace of ideas, you'd think that people would be willing to have a debate. Well, no. But anyway, so from there, I got into Ayn Rand and was really into the philosophy of libertarianism. Read The Fountainhead, read Atlas Shrugged, read all of that stuff, read about her philosophy, and was blown away. And so for a very, very long time, my personal belief was that skepticism led me to atheism, which led me to libertarianism. I thought that they all went together. Mm-hmm. That if you were going to be rejecting the God of the celestial realm, that you should reject the God of the terrestrial realm, which is the state, that you would reject the state. And I believed that for a very, very long time, and then it sort of started to have cracks. And a lot of that really had to do with the fact that I was a huge Obama supporter in 2008. I also voted for him in 2012. I vote Democratic for the most part, and I was, for most of my life, sort of a New Deal liberal. I had grown up in a liberal home, and that was kind of how it was. But libertarianism was this exciting thing that was like... that was this beautiful idea that had answers to every question, and that was what kind of made it nice. And it had a support network. I went to conferences, I wrote academic work, I did all kinds of things. But when I left it, it was really mainly because I realized that it's really not so much a movement about freedom, so much as it is about control of the poor from the rich. I found out pretty much that every group that I was involved in was funded by Charles and David Koch, the billionaire industrialists who are they founded Americans for Prosperity and all these groups that tried to get the Tea Party and basically had the Tea Party win the 2012 midterms and screwed our Congress up for the last 4 years. And was disgusted with that, never considered myself a member of the Tea Party, never considered myself a Republican, never considered myself a part of that at all, but I did consider myself a libertarian. I thought it was cool. But then I realized that it's all funded by the Kochs, and it's really not interested in social justice, which is the big thing I'm about, which is that because I don't believe in a God and I don't believe in religion, I think this is the only life that we're guaranteed to have. Let's make it the best we can for the most amount of people possible. And libertarians aren't interested in that.
Yes.
They're not. They're just flat out not interested in that at all. If you look at a lot of these politicians who call themselves libertarians or talk show hosts that call themselves libertarians, they're the first ones to stand out against unions. They're the first ones to stand out against public education. They're the first people to stand out against the minimum wage increase, which every demographic in this country supports. They're against environmental regulations. They're anti-science. They're anti-global warming. They're, for the most part, a lot of them are anti-evolution. And so I found that people like Mike Lee and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and all these types, they consider themselves libertarians. And mainstream libertarianism is not something I wanted to be associated with. And Ayn Rand was full of shit. That's the other one. Ayn Rand is completely full of shit. Her only contribution that was good was her view of epistemology, which is the philosophy of knowledge. The only thing she got right, which was that knowledge only comes from reason and empiricism.
Right.
That's all you got. She's right on the nuggets there. But you know what? I read Hume and figured that out too. So,
Right.
And I loved how she considered herself an original thinker, and she totally wasn't. Everything that she ever came up with, she stole from someone else. She stole it from Locke, she stole it from Hume, she stole it from Voltaire, she stole it from Thomas Paine, she stole it from everybody. So it's not like she was this original thinker. What she was really good at was selling it in a modern context and systematizing it into one thing that everybody could believe in. That, and as a philosophy, it is not open for criticism. Objectivism, for the most part in America, is a cult. Ayn Randism and Randians are cult. What makes philosophy good is the ability for academics to revise it, to edit it, to critique it. And Ayn Randians don't do that. They accept it as pablum, and they say that is the way it is, and that's how it goes. And so I rejected that flat out. There are things about libertarianism that I still really like. I'm all for the legalization of marijuana. I'm for the decriminalization of drugs. I think that prostitution should be legalized. I think that people should make more personal decisions. I have no problems with that. But when it comes to my support of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and public schools and all the things that have made our country better for everybody, they don't agree with that, and that's what I'm done with.
That's exactly where I split from libertarianism, in the same areas, and because I used to call myself a libertarian, and I can't do it anymore.
No. For me, it was just that rejection of the fact that they have no interest in making it better for people who are working class or middle class at all. And they talk all the time about how the government screws us over in the middle class and this, that, and the other. I said, no. The government institutions that came out of the World War II era, like the GI Bill, which is why our university that we go to exists, is because of the GI Bill, or student loans, or being able to, federal housing authorities that give people good homes, or any of that. This is what has made it better for working people and middle class people. Because quite frankly, what the libertarian ethos would like to go back to is the era of Andrew Jackson, which I don't know if you know too much about, gentlemen, but Andrew Jackson destroyed central banking in the United States, which led to the Panic of 1837. And everything went downhill from there. That's what you get with a deregulated, non-centralized economic system. Everything goes apart. And that's what they want, because the people who are at the top benefit from that. Mm-hmm. So I'm still a die-in-the-wool atheist. I have no problem with that. I am still a non-believer. I'm still very much a skeptic. But I'm firmly back in the liberal camp because, quite frankly, libertarianism it's a false alternative. I mean, it's not really a good alternative. And I don't want it to become the third party in America. So I'll stop there. I'll stop there.
Excellent. Hey, I gotta say, I learned some things listening to Justin here, and I heard some book titles and authors that I'm gonna have to look into.
Oh yeah. There was one other book I did want to mention, and I mentioned it in the bio I wrote for both of you. Is a book called Atheism: The Case Against God by George H. Smith. It is written from a libertarian perspective, but it is one of the best books on atheism. It's phenomenal. He goes through point by point. It's very much set up like Hitchens' God Is Not Great.
Okay.
But whereas Hitchens tends to sort of veer off and talk about a bunch of other stuff, Smith stays right on point. And just
Tunnel vision.
And he just goes through.
Okay.
It's great.
I think I've heard of that one, but I'll definitely check it out. I consume everything I possibly can in this arena, so.
Me too.
You know what else I've learned about Justin?
What's that?
He goes. And he goes fast.
Yeah.
I'm laid back. I'm so laid back.
Your thoughts are together. You're not you don't stammer like I do when I'm trying to come up with.
Okay, so I've known Justin for maybe close to a year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, passing and whatnot. In fact, I interviewed you briefly for that one. There was a project that I did about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That was about the time that you received a scholarship for travel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I received the, I think it was called the...
we don't really have to mention
whatever it. I forget what it's called.
Basically, you got a scholarship so you can travel.
Yeah,
Okay, so anyway, what are your thoughts on Justin so far?
I think that he is seems like a very well-articulated man, and I actually pretty much agree with 100% of what he just said regarding libertarianism and everything. I mean, like I said, I went down the same path, basically. Like, mine came a little later in life. I'm 33 years old, and
right.
What are you, 20?
I'm 23.
23?
Yeah.
I mean, man, if I could have gotten that kind of clarity age 23.
Sometimes you feel like you've wasted so much time.
Yeah.
Just like the thinking atheist. I mean, not the thinking. He doesn't call himself Seth, but yeah, he likes to talk. He's like, man, he wished. I mean, he didn't become an atheist till he was in his late 40s, I think, or into his 40s. What is he, mid-40s?
I think he was about 40.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, he feels like he lost a lot of time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that you didn't grow up in a home that was conducive to that. Like, my parents were never against me learning about religion. But I think the thing that was important too is that they just wanted me to have a good education, so they exposed me to different things.
True.
And sometimes parents, I've heard you say this on the podcast before. Your parents were doing the best they could, and they thought that they were doing the best for you. And sometimes it isn't. But you can't hold them against them too much because they were just doing what they knew. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I don't hold it against them. And well, I think you're right. My mind may have been predisposed to be the way I am now.
Yeah.
But I was just discouraged, and not even directly. I don't think sometimes directly, because you've heard me say some of the questions I ask were nixed, but not directly because of things like that. I guess there was just a fear factor involved for me, so I just stayed away from those kind of questions for a long time.
I think a lot of it had to do with that fear of the ability of knowing that I don't know. And being okay with saying, I don't know.
That's a huge step.
Because so many people in our society have a real trouble with that. And it's like, it is totally fine to say, I don't know. And I don't know is something that is not bad. My problem is I always find, and I said this to Mike earlier last week, I said, some theists tend to think that we're arrogant because we don't believe in something. And my opinion is to a certain degree, they're the ones that are arrogant because they're presupposing something that they cannot prove as an alternative to not knowing. And it's like, I would rather be in the not know camp than to make something up that's fantastical that cannot even remotely be proven. I would rather be in the non-believing camp.
Right.
Dude, pretending to know something that you... What does Bogosian
pretending
say?
to know something that you don't know.
I have not read that book. I was familiar with him, but I just downloaded it. I have it on my iPad.
It's excellent.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through the audiobook now, I think.
Now, right, and speaking of that arrogance that he just referred to.
Okay, here we go.
Moving on. It's a great segue because we had discussed, Mike and I, a conversation that I had with a high school. He wasn't a classmate, he was a little younger than me, but we went to the same high school. I had posted something on Facebook regarding my opinions on HJR 3, the bill here in Indiana to ban gay marriage and constitutionally ban gay marriage. And he messaged me to ask me, are you saying that you're for the rights of homosexual couples? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I won't go into the whole conversation, but I kind of gave him my usual spiel on that and tried to get him to think, tried to throw some questions in there open to force him to think. But it ended with him telling me that he was going to pray for me because I'm not a Christian. And there's that. Now, we're arrogant, okay? Because I don't share your worldview. You need to pray to your God so that I get there. So you're assuming that I'm living in a way that is incorrect, and yours is correct. So that's we're arrogant.
Yeah, I've gotten into a few of those discussions. In fact, with a coworker of mine that I've mentioned a few times, we got into a discussion. It was the comparison between expelled and religious.
Religious, yeah.
And there's been a few times where I've been. I'll pray that everything works out for you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, most likely whatever's going to happen is going to happen, so I'll just deal with it when it comes to me.
Sure.
Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
Well, I think the way I deal with it is really two ways. If it's someone I know that I'm comfortable saying my opinions with, generally I say the thing that's the classic cliche in atheism now, which is that you pray for me, I'll think for you.
Good one.
which
like
I really really like. The other one is because I work in retail, and so you get a lot of people at my particular shop that I work at. We have a huge section of Christian material, and so you'll have a lot of Christians come in, people who are like Amish or Mennonite, and when they say things like, God bless you, or thank you so much, have a blessed day, things like that, I just say thank you.
Yeah, just
because
let that go.
because I don't know, I'm really rare in that I think that all people are good generally, and religion is what makes them bad. I think it's like I don't know.
It's so funny to hear that, but
It's like the great physicist Steven Weinberg once said that good people will do good things, wicked people will do wicked things. If you want a good person to do something wicked, that takes religion. And I think that's kind of it. I think most people are good people. They're kind people. They wouldn't hurt anybody. And so when people say things like that, I don't have a problem with it. When I do have a problem with it is when their arrogance sort of trumps their religiosity, where it's like, I'll pray for you, in the condescending glee that Christians tend to have about saying that. And in those situations, I go, great, thank you for doing something that absolutely adds nothing to the conversation and really doesn't do anything in the world. So thank you very much.
it kind of goes back to the whole idea of Merry Christmas, right?
Right.
It's like somebody's saying something nice to you, but then you have the other situation where you're like, man, last night I went out and slept with some hookers and had some beer and smoked some pot, and then like, oh my God, I will pray for you because you're an evil soul and you need help. Then it becomes a little, like, I don't know, maybe I'm
Right.
well, am I going overboard here?
No.
I don't think you are. And I think that, we live in a society that's a free society, I like to think. And I like to think we also live in a secular society where people have the right to believe in what they want.
Because we do.
Because we do. And we have that right. And I think that one of the things, and I wanted to bring this up to you guys too, because I think this ties in with the I'll pray for you thing. When people say, like, I respect your beliefs, that's not really what they mean. What they actually mean is, we respect the right for you to have that belief.
Right.
That's really what that
Exactly.
means. And so I have all the right in the world. I do not respect Christianity whatsoever, but I respect people's right to believe it. And
You respect the person itself as opposed to their belief.
Absolutely. Whenever I criticize religion, I never, ever, ever do it in a personal way. I never do ad hominem attacks. I never talk about it. It's always about the religion itself.
That's the best way to be.
I don't go any other way.
Which can be scary. I mean, we've talked about it numerous times, but I always get nervous. I mean, even on the show, depending on, what we talk about and whatnot, sometimes I'm like, man, every time I say something like that, I feel like I have very dear friends and family who feel this way, and I'm here making fun of it. And there's this feeling of, man,
Right.
I'm kind of an asshole.
But here's the thing, though. If you making fun of it gets them to think about what they actually believe for 2 seconds, you did your job.
Yes.
Like, that's like, I don't have a problem with that at all. These people, these systems of thought have had 2,000 to 3,000 years. The Abrahamic religions have had nearly 2,000 years as a monopoly on thought. We're just making up for lost time. I mean, that's really it. And so I don't have a problem with making fun of beliefs. What I do have a problem with is making fun of specific people and saying that people are stupid. I have a problem with that. Because a lot of these people, they're nice people. They stop at stoplights. They do their taxes. They feed their kids. They're good people.
Right.
They just believe in really fantastical bullshit on Sunday, and that's really it. So we can't denigrate them for that. But what we can do is denigrate the religion or make fun of it and make them think about it, because I think that's what we need to do. That's, I think, our job.
And I agree. Now, as far as making fun of the religion specifically, I think that only works up to a point. Like,
I agree.
I think there are some glaring things that must be pointed out that are just absolutely absurd.
Like the fact that the Genesis book contradicts itself within the first 2 chapters.
Yes, things like that, and the story of Noah's Ark, and not only the absurdity of the story itself, but the correlation you can draw between that and like ancient Sumerian.
Absolutely.
Like Gilgamesh,
Or
that's
Akhenaten, the Egyptian god who was the unigod, yeah.
right. The worship the disk of the sun, Aten, or whatever.
Or my favorite one, which is the one that Michael Shermer talks about on Bullshit, which is Apollonius of Tyana, who was a popular prophet during the time of Christ.
He's a contemporary of Christ.
He was a contemporary of Christ, and nobody talks about him, but his story is nearly identical to Jesus. So it's we need to think of Jesus as very much akin to Socrates, because I debate his existence. I think very much as you would even debate Socrates' existence, because all we have about Socrates is Plato. And so it's like, or people who've written about Plato. So that's how we should treat Jesus' sort of existence too, is that it's like, there's some nice things he said, there's some really crap things that he said, but we have to treat it as sort of apocryphal or mythological. And that's kind of what it is. It's not any more different than the Iliad or Gilgamesh, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And then once you've pointed what I mean by that is once you've pointed some of those things out to them, these absurdities, you don't want to go too deep into it. I think that's where you start kind of encouraging. That's where when you're going to read this book, and this is where I get this.
Peter
it was pointed out to me that once you get beyond that point, they're going to start to become defensive. You're going to create, which may cause them to cling even tighter to their beliefs, more tightly, whatever. And then that's where he realized that the culprit here is the faith itself, not the actual religion, but the faith that they are holding itself as a way of knowing the world. Faith is an unreliable epistemology, is basically where he's going with this.
And that's basically the best way. That's how George H. Smith, in Atheism: A Case Against God, debunks the concept of God altogether, which is the idea that using the knowledge of epistemology, all knowledge that we have ever gained in the history of civilization has been through reason and through evidence and argumentation. That's all we've got. This is literally all we have, okay? Knowledge that has revealed wisdom is impossible. It's impossible.
It is, yeah.
And so that is your best way to say that even if there is a God, it would be impossible to do it through agnosticism, through reason. And so what I say to people like pantheists who are like, God is everything, the all-encompassing and the non-existent often look very much alike. And so you have to think about things like that. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think you have to do it to a point, because I think with a lot of people who are Christians or any other religion, they sort of in their head go, this guy's a know-it-all asshole and knows everything, and he knows that he's smarter than me, and he's using that against me, so I'm going to cling to my faith because that's what I've been taught. And it is a faith thing. It totally is.
I got into a conversation with James yesterday. He was over here. And
the liberal Christian.
Yes.
He doesn't like me.
He doesn't. I told him, it's like, James, we've talked about you numerous times on the show since you were on. Yeah. But we had a brief. We probably talked for 2 hours on my couch downstairs, because it always goes that way.
These conversations are never brief.
Yeah. No. And we got into
big stuff. This is heavy stuff.
He has a situation. He I always bring into the, where were you born? Where you were born is most likely to do with the fact that you were Christian.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you were born in India, it's very possible you'd be Hindu. And, what do you think about that? And I think what it comes down to is, for James, I think he feels like a lot of people that, at least what I tried to explain to him, how I feel like it sounds, is he believes that there is a creator, and that most likely everything is attached or connected to it somehow. He follows the Christian religion because that's what he grew up with, and it's what feels right to him.
Uh-huh.
So he thinks that Jesus died on the cross for his sins, but at the same time, I think he struggles at the same time, just like anyone else does when it comes to. I can hear that.
Yeah.
When it comes to deciding, when you bring up where you were born, I think because I went into the Norse gods, I went into the ancient Greek gods. Like, seriously, these things came before Christianity, didn't they?
And that was like when I was growing up with my dad is like an agnostic. My dad he's kind of like a beyonder. He tends to use the logical fallacy of the argument from ignorance, where it's like, how could this all be here without a God? Like, my dad tends to do that. Uh-huh. But my dad always says, well, why couldn't it just be a bunch of different gods who do a bunch of different stuff? Why would it just be one? And wouldn't he mess it up all the time? And when I was a child, hearing that, when you're like 10 or 12 and your dad's kind of talking about things, because my dad and I are like this. We're like, well, I'm putting my hands together, but it's like my dad and I are very, very much alike. And I told, and he was monumental. And so him saying that to me as a child was huge, because it was like, okay, well, maybe there are a bunch of different gods. And then I'm like, well, maybe there's not really any God at all. And so so I always tell my dad, I said, well, Dad, I mean, I'm like everybody else. I just go one God further.
Right.
Oh, classic.
Absolutely.
I pulled that one on my buddy.
See, with what I don't get, I suppose, what I can't understand is how you mentioned that he recognizes that his attachment to Christianity is cultural.
Yeah.
Yet he still chooses to cling to that just because he likes it, which indicates to me that he has that seems like he might not even have a desire to entertain the idea that.
This is what's really crazy, because
Some people just want to believe and they will
Yes,
ignore everything.
That's pretty much what I think it comes down to, because when it comes down to it, he and I have the same political beliefs. I mean, as far as being human and being kind to one another, he calls bullshit on discrimination, on homosexuality, and I mean, he's totally all this
very socially liberal.
Right. I mean, even it comes down to the idea that Jesus, if he existed, was a socialist liberal hippie. I mean, it's we have this. I mean, we're of the same kind of situation, but he can't let go of there being something there.
And maybe it's something like Daniel Dennett's book, Breaking the Spell. He talks about the idea of, like, I think a lot of people stay in religion because it's like they believe in belief.
Yes.
Like, it's not so much that they believe in the faith itself, but they just believe in belief. Like, belief has this some kind of virtue that has people cling to it.
Something that we're supposed to do.
Because, quite frankly, and as most people who know about me, I guess I am kind of a firebrand atheist. There are people who are kind of friendly and nice, and I tend to be very conciliatory with Christians, but I'm very blunt. I don't beat around the bush with stuff. And quite frankly, I'm almost more bothered with liberal Christians than the fundamentalists. And my real reason is this. At least the fundamentalists have a good idea of what the hell they believe in.
Absolutely.
Like,
I'm tired of this wishy-washiness.
you know, it's like the people who like want to vote for like Nader instead of voting for Gore in 2000. It's like, well, he's the better choice. No, vote for Gore, because every vote that goes to Nader, it takes away from Gore. Every liberal Christian is someone who could be an atheist that isn't, and it's like, and that's it, you know. And so it's like, because I was there for a little while, I was a liberal Christian, and so I get that. So when I was listening to James's podcast, that was what I was doing the whole time. I was like, because it's like, nail it. Because I think with liberal Christians, it's like trying to get them to say what they actually believe is like nailing Jello to a wall. I mean, it's like there's nothing consistent.
Exactly. They recognize that there is plenty amiss with their life philosophy, but they just take that. You're so close. You're so close.
Right,
just take that next step.
Jeez,
It's like our buddy Andrew, who we hope to have on the show at some point in the near future. I mean, what you've been telling me that he's feeling like every time he listens to one of the shows, he's like, man, you can't help but wonder how close he is to.
He says, God, I just find myself agreeing with you guys so often, and it's like it just really makes me think about things.
Which is all the more reason why I'm here. Like, my hope is that being here is I'm tipping the balance for someone.
Yeah.
Because that's what I try to do in my life. Because I'm an educator. I want to go in education as a field, and that's what I want to do. And so if I can tip the balance for someone, that's me doing my job. Like, that's all I want. You know.
Now, see, I'm curious because you mentioned that you feel like you're a firebrand. Yeah. I mean, I think of Richard Dawkins, who is blunt about what he says but he's not an asshole by any means. He's just blunt. And I think that what it comes down to, especially around here, is you don't question it.
No.
And because you don't question it, it's nobody has, the only people that question religion is the person themselves who feels that way.
Right.
So when somebody else is questioning them and their beliefs, then they feel like they're under attack, no matter how simple or how nice you're just asking a question.
And there should be absolutely nothing that is above question, like above questioning. We should be able to question anything.
Oh, yeah.
In everything.
And that's what we do with children. There's a wonderful video of the great Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about children and saying, what would you do for children? Are you worried about children in America? He says, I'm not worried about children. I'm worried about the adults. Children constantly ask questions. Kids are inquisitive. Kids are skeptical. Kids are brilliant. It's the adults who get set in this rigid world that they create for themselves that it disables innovation. It disables creativity.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I look so much forward to the next generations coming up because they are more skeptical.
I agree.
They are, the largest growing religious denomination in this country is none. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. We are a bigger demographic than African Americans. We're a bigger demographic than Jews. We're a bigger demographic than homosexuals. And these are groups that have huge institutions that allow them to make change in our society. And that's what I look forward to seeing with us.
We need to mobilize, in some way.
what I'm curious about, though, is while I do feel like that they're most likely, there are a lot of, there's 20% of the country, is it something like that, that are labeling themselves as
Nuns,
atheistic, whatnot.
Yeah, the atheist is about 5% of those nuns, but...
And we like the idea...
Well, not 5%. 5% of the population, not
to
those
think
nuns.
that those younger people who are coming up, the younger generations, are thinkers and they're not being necessarily indoctrinated, even though creationism is on the rise. But I think what I'm curious about is our area. Do you think it's the same way?
I do. I mean, I think if you look at someone like I kind of am a millennial, I guess is what you would say. I was born in 1990, so I'm kind of a millennial generation, the beginning of that. Generation Y.
Uh-huh.
I'm an atheist. My girlfriend is an atheist. One of my friends is most of the people I'm around do not believe in religion, and all of them are around the same age as I am.
My 22-year-old, well, my wife's cousin, he's an atheist. I know so many kids of that age that are...
And it's because... And
kids,
a lot...
I'm
and
sorry.
No, you're fine. I think the thing, too, is a lot of times there are people who come into it in a sense of rebellion, or at least their parents think that that's the way it is. But I think that people now who are coming to it, honestly, are people who are just curious about the world. They want to make a difference. And the other thing, too, even people who are religious, the religion is coming to a point in their life where it's, with these generations, it's becoming more private and it's becoming more secular. So the thing that's kind of nice is even if we can't always get everybody in the atheist camp, if we can't always get anybody in the agnostic or deist or whatever camp, the nun camp, at least the people who are religious are secular enough to say, I have just as right to be here in this society as you do, and we should have the free marketplace of ideas. Because that's all I'm asking for. The day that our government would ever pass a law saying that Christianity was illegal was the moment I stand with a Christian and I say,
absolutely.
free expression for all.
I agree.
And that's the thing that I think is really important, is that free expression is important because we have a marketplace of ideas. And the marketplace works. And we'll talk about that later.
I'm torn on whether or not we should move forward or ask you more questions, because, I know that, for instance, you're a part of a fraternity.
I am.
And I don't want to name any names, I don't want to point anybody out,
Sure.
but I'm sure that it's a pretty mixed group of people who have beliefs in God and whatnot as well.
Yeah.
And I know that you're pretty, from a conversation I had this morning, I know that a lot of people know where you stand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are knowing where I stand as well. I just, at the same time, don't want that to ruin, I don't know. One day I'm just going to say, fuck it.
And personally, Mike, I think you should.
I don't disagree with you at all.
I understand what your position is because you're trying to make a life for yourself. You're trying, you probably have a car payment, you probably have a mortgage, you have a wife, you're trying to have a family. Like, I get that. And that's what a lot of people have to live with. And so in the fraternity, a good portion of us are atheists. Yeah, I would say of the people I've talked to, a good portion of them are non-believers. Yeah, one really good friend of mine who's in it is a full-blown atheist, and he's got a great story. I'll tell you guys off the podcast sometime about going to a haunted house. It's good. It's fun.
Okay, cool. That's cool.
But yeah, it's a group that's largely either we're not religious, we don't give a shit, or it's like we have a guy who's a cultural Jew. He's pretty much a non-believer, but he's culturally Jewish.
Okay.
We've got, and then I think within that we've got a couple guys that are maybe Catholic or something like that. But by and large, our group is extremely secular.
Which, in the same sense, you talk about cultural Jew, I don't think there's any difference between the idea that the three of us are cultural Christians.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or, well, you could say cultural Christians, even though most of those Christian holidays that we celebrate are probably pagan anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to take Saturnalia back. Like, that's...
Yeah.
Do you know Saturnalia? I know that we're going way
We
off
do
topic.
know that's where gift giving comes from.
But I think in ancient Roman history, Saturnalia, you were allowed to be lawless. You could just rape and pillage and whatever for 24 hours or something like that, and everything would be forgiven, and you could move on with your life.
Yeah, it's kind of like that movie series that's out now called The Purge, where I guess people get 24 hours to do whatever the hell they want. It's kind of like that, but with gifts. Like, so it's kind of like that, or or the winter solstice. Because most Christian historians, people like Bart Ehrman and other people, they're like, well, Jesus could have possibly been born in June or July, but they moved it because here's the thing. I love what Bill Maher said on religious. He said it is so much easier to take down a sign and paint a building and put new management than it is to tear it down and rebuild it.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to do that.
It's true.
Yeah, I get it. Well, on that note, maybe we should go ahead and move on.
Sure.
We're a good 45 minutes into this, if you
Fantastic.
can believe that.
I think we covered a lot of ground though.
It goes by really
Definitely.
fast sometimes. Next on our list is, do you think we covered I'll Pray For You very well?
There's really not much to say about it. I think it had the purpose that I'd hoped it would. Like, we began with our
Okay.
our reactions to people saying "I'll pray for you,"
Then we went crazy.
and it went off into a direction that is great for the show. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. So
I was really happy to get the bit out about the liberal Christians because when I heard James's podcast, I've been waiting a whole week to say what I wanted to say.
Well, see, the funny thing is that Keith actually wrote something a while back, and we came here and we recorded it because we wanted to turn it into a first official video for our YouTube page, but I haven't edited it yet, and I want to get some imagery of churches and things like that. But it is in the vein of pleading to liberal Christians.
I believe
so.
the title is actually
Yeah, I know.
"A Plea to Liberal Christians."
Well, I wish that Sam Harris would write a new like a sequel to Letter to a Christian Nation. I wish he'd write one to Letter to a Liberal Christian Nation.
Yeah.
And talk to them specifically and say, come on.
Someone
just
needs
come
to.
on. Somebody needs to.
Greta Christina actually.
She's good.
Yeah, she addressed them pretty well, and I can't remember why are you atheists so angry? I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I have. That was covered in another podcast I listened to. Yeah.
Yep, she addressed the liberal Christians pretty well in that book, I thought.
I think to a certain extent, I think we have a right to be angry because the system that people believe in, that they wholeheartedly believe in, they really don't know what they believe in.
Uh-huh.
They believe in a system of religion, generally the Abrahamic religions, that condones slavery, that condones fratricide, infanticide.
Mm-hmm.
But you're taking it out of context.
That's always context. Okay, I hate apologetics. I hate it with a passion. I think that apologists should just be trashed in public. Like William Lane Craig's a great example. I don't know if you guys are familiar with William Lane
Yes,
Craig.
unfortunately.
William Lane
yes.
Craig apparently has this policy where he doesn't debate anyone unless they have a PhD.
Oh.
And so, so Matt Dillahunty, who was the president of Atheist Community of Boston, runs the Atheist Experience, fantastic show.
Absolutely.
He said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get my PhD friend, and he'll get another PhD guy. We'll do a dual debate. My friend will go off and have a beer, and I'll trash both of them. And that was Matt Dillahunty's response. And I thought that was great. But these apologists are people who, like, the slavery thing especially, it's very clear in the Bible that it says not only you have a right to have slaves, you have a right to beat them so long as they don't die within a day or two. You can beat them as much as you want, and that your slave should worship you like you worship God. It says it right there in the Bible. That is incredibly wrong. And you'd think a God that is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all good would take 2 fucking minutes to say, "Thou shalt not own another person as property." You would think that would be easy to do, but apparently it's not.
Right.
But again, it was written in the Bronze Age where people thought sea monsters were a legitimate hazard. So what can you do?
And that's basically why they say William Lane Craig's response to that is everything that God does is intrinsically good. Like no matter what he does,
the
no
hell
matter
does that mean?
it's a huge cop out, isn't it? I mean,
it's basically the warm and fuzzy feeling I have about God. Like
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't add anything to the debate at all.
And the whole of Christianity and probably other religions that I'm not as familiar with are so leader driven. Like we have this one man that is speaking from a pulpit who is giving his interpretation of what the Bible should be, and these people are eating it up, and the ones that are popular stick, and they kind of keep going, and all of a sudden people think this is the law, this is what Christianity is, and it's just ever changing. And you'll hear a Christian say though, Christianity is the same as it was 300 years ago, blah, blah, blah.
And that's absolutely nonsense. Because if you look at people like Joyce Meyer or Joel Osteen, I read a book a few years ago about a guy who was a journalist who went around the country talking about people about what they believed the apocalypse was like. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, Joel Osteen a few years ago went on Larry King, and Larry King actually asked him about the apocalypse, and Joel Osteen would not give him a straight answer. and the reason why is because the Joyce Meyer types, the Joel Osteen tapes, what they do is they sort of take smatterings of Christianity, self-help, and then this the wealth gospel, and they put them together into one thing. There was a book written about 100 years ago called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, which was very influential to a book that later on came out a few years ago called The Secret.
Yes.
Which, if it's a book that's had millions of copies been printed, is it really much of a secret? But my thing is that it's basically like self-help stuff with smatterings of God, and that's really all it is. And that's what I look forward to seeing religion go to. It becomes either personal, it becomes irrelevant, or it becomes non-existent.
Yeah, The Secret, a book of woo, I believe is what we would call that. But
Shall we?
Move to Oh, is that yes? Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'll hold any further points.
Shut your mouth. Pretty big news. In fact, I don't know if we actually touched it. I think we kind of touched on it the last podcast.
Maybe briefly
not.
mentioned. I don't know.
But some really cool big thing. We had a college player who was a college football player, Michael Sam, who came out as gay. Officially, his team had known, his coach had known for a year. The college itself probably knew. I don't know how much, but regardless, this guy came out, and he's about to be drafted by the NFL, drafted as the first openly gay player. And not only is he a football player, but he is a bad motherfucker.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He is a defensive end, and he is just
terrifying.
And this is what I love most about it, is the fact that this is a manly man football player who is gay. And it totally throws that stereotype of limp-wristed, designer. All those horrible stereotypes toward homosexuals out the window.
Right. And the thing that really, really bothers me about this, of course, some of the NFL players have had their reactions to it that have been negative, but the thing that really bothers me about it is his draft stock has dropped.
Right.
He's one of the most dominant defensive players in college football, and he has dropped to where they don't think he won't be drafted until like the 3rd or 4th round. Like a drop from, I believe they said he is ranked right now as a 110 overall prospect. An initial drop from 160 from 90 on Monday. So like he was originally the 90th overall that they had, and he dropped all the way to 160 after coming out as gay. So that is hugely indicative of the NFL having a problem from within.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be really interesting once he gets on a team and he starts destroying people, and everybody's like, "Man, we fucked up."
Well, didn't they make some like and I don't know nothing about sports, but didn't they make some bullshit argument about the reason why is because it would create too much of like an uproar in the team or something like that? And the other thing they pointed out too was it was like, if you switch him from defensive end?
Yeah.
I think if apparently there was a game where they switched him to linebacker and he didn't do quite as well, or something like that. And so they're talking about like player versatility. It's like, but don't people draft people in the NFL for very specific things? That's what I was always sort of thought was.
Well, I think you can be, but at the same time, for instance, the Colts, they had their Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney, who were
defensive ends.
They were defensive ends, and they were killing it because they were so fast. But traditionally, defensive ends have been mammoth guys who just blow their way through the line and go after the quarterback. They should have been linebackers, in which case, after things changed with the Colts, Robert Mathis actually became a linebacker.
And he's excelled in that position also.
Yeah, but. So my guess is that, I don't know, I think if you're an athlete, most likely you're going to be able to play more than one position.
No. Getting to what you had mentioned about the locker room and things like that, there was actually a comment that really kind of highlights that whole perception here. There's a player named Jonathan Vilma. He's a New Orleans Saints linebacker. His quote on that was, "Imagine if he's the guy next to me and, I get dressed naked." How's that go together? I get dressed naked, taking a shower, the whole nine, and it just so happens he looks at me. How am I supposed to respond?
You just keep taking your shower and don't think about it?
Right.
He's not going to overpower you. I mean...
or maybe it's the fact that Michael Sam didn't even remotely give a shit and just so happened to move where you were.
Right.
I mean, and not only that, but it's just kind of, this is such a vacuous statement. I mean, quite frankly, this man should be strong enough in his own personal sexuality to not care.
Right.
And I mean, here's the deal. To be quite honest, they've probably showered with gay guys before, not knowing it.
Absolutely.
There's no way it
Yeah.
didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, I think the other thing too is it's like, you know, I think the other thing too is it's like, if this works out, and I said this to you in the podcast, if he ends up getting drafted, I think he has the potential to do for the NFL what Jackie Robinson did for Major League Baseball.
Sure.
And the hope is that with the overwhelming support that he's been given from a large portion of the NFL, both former players and current players, and the overwhelming support he's even gotten from his hometown, I think that's a good start. I think that's a really good start. And if people want to keep making the argument that it'll be distracting for the team, it's like, why don't they get him on a good team, or like whatever team's going to be the best next year, have him whoop some serious ass, and then that'll all go away.
well, I don't know how that'll work, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's just he's gonna be who he is.
And again, I mean, this is coming from a guy that could tell you everything you ever want to know about Star Trek and Doctor Who, and I know nothing about football.
I just think it's cool. I mean, there's been. Go ahead, Keith. You have something.
Oh, no. Finish your thought.
Well, there have been numerous players who have been rumored to be gay through the years and things like that.
Right.
And obviously, I say obviously, but there was. I was kind of telling you guys briefly yesterday that there was a Samoan Polynesian retiree who spent time between 2 or 3 teams, I believe, in his career, and he came out gay. ESPN has done a story on him, and this was something that the guy dealt with on a daily basis, and he wanted to kill himself quite frequently because he heard the things that were going on around him, and he felt like he couldn't be who he was.
That's
but
terrible.
at the same time, there's people who respect that, and just because I'm how do I go that direction? I mean, I don't want to. Do I want to screw every girl I see? No, not every girl.
No.
I mean, sure, there's a few that a lot that I've found attractive in my day, but I mean, at the same time, it's not like I'm gonna. I don't know. It's frustrating.
I see your point. I mean, your point basically is that this idea that there are a lot of people in our society that think if you're homosexual that somehow you are just a complete social reprobate, and I think that they don't understand that it's like these people are just like you. Like they put their pants on one leg at a time. They have the same problems and inconveniences that you have, and so I just think it's a real sad state of affairs. But I think that was another reason why a former player by the name of Wade Davis left too. Wade Davis played for the Titans and the Redskins in his professional career, and now he's doing a nonprofit working on young children coming into football, and he talked about it as a culture. He was on MSNBC a week ago, and he talked about it. There's a whole culture, and that it disgusted him, and that's why he left. And he was never suicidal like that guy was, but it was certainly something where the way he was treated was a substantive reason why he left it.
One more player reaction here. This one's from a guy named Charles James of the New York Giants. He tweeted this: 1, your business is your business and I don't care. 2, when did this become a heroic act? I just want to come out and let everybody know that I am straight as hell. And I right away have a comment on that. The reason that this is a big deal is because, and the reason it's not remarkable for you to say that you're straight, is because you get to live your life with no worries. You get to go out in public with your wife or your girlfriend, and you can live as yourself with no repercussions. Now this guy, if he holds this in, he cannot be publicly if he has a partner, he would not be able to go out with this guy publicly and be himself. And now that everyone knows, he can. And it's great. He's setting an example for other athletes to be like, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. It is a heroic act. And that's why that actual quote made me even more sick than the other one.
I think it goes to the same fact what Justin was saying, though, is like Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, really, you're changing the culture of a corporation. I don't know what the hell you want. A group, a boys' club, if you will, an institution. You're changing a culture.
Yes.
Plain and simply, you're changing a culture, and it's
quite frankly, a sport that is losing children to it hand over fist because of the related injuries. You would think that they would be more inclusive, and that's kind of the thing and I hope that I look forward to seeing where this goes in its development, because I do think that it is a precedent and it is a heroic act. And the guy who said that was just sort of an ignorant dick. And that's just
Yes,
kind of it. I mean,
agree.
it is what it is. This is a guy who probably has a really nice contract. He's been on a team for probably forever, and he lives a life that's pretty much carefree and doesn't really matter to him. But it does matter to these people. And it does matter to all those young kids, particularly urban or African American kids who may be gay, who see that and they go, I can do that too, which is the whole point.
Charles James, it's called empathy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know you could probably destroy me, but you're a dick.
You know what was impressive as far as people who could destroy each other? I mean, you remember the whole incognito deal?
Yeah.
Yes.
Incognito actually came out in favor and saying, hey, way to go you, to Sam. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
I read that tweet. Incognito said that, which is, I don't know if that was him saying it because he wanted to try to take some of the heat off of him for all the bullshit he caused.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean,
Yeah.
hell, Deion Sanders is in here.
Yeah, Deion Sanders.
Which was pretty cool. I applaud Missouri defensive end Michael Sam football for his bravery and honesty about who he is. I pray he gets an opportunity to play the game he loves.
You know, I read that. I read that. My first thought was like, Dion, a phone call is a lot easier than a prayer.
Yeah.
Like you just call the guys and use your pull. Like that's what you.
But it is. I mean, it's a nice thing to be able to hear.
It's a nice gesture.
Yes. So, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot going on with this. I think it's freaking great. But there was. Do we want to? Shall we move to the?
Well, related news, so more celebrity news. Sure,
yes.
why not?
I think, my guess, if people don't know about this already, I mean, especially with Michael Sam, but there was an actress who was at a. What was the event exactly?
It's the Human Rights Campaign,
that's right.
like Time to Thrive conference.
Yeah.
Right.
So she was invited to speak, and I don't think that anybody necessarily knew what she was going to speak about. However, she decided that it was her time to make her point. Maybe I should just play the clip.
Sure.
All right. We have an audio clip. What's up?
Turn me down.
Oh,
real quick.
Are you too loud?
No. Just mute me.
Are you going to the bathroom?
Yep, the coffee caught up with me. I wasn't going to say anything.
It's funnier to say it, that's all.
I was going to keep it. Back in old school radio, they used to always look for things called bathroom songs. And a bathroom song was a song that if you had to answer the call of nature, that you could get it done. The song would still be playing when you came back.
Yeah.
So
Just put on an entire box set of Metallica or Led Zeppelin.
if you played something like Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres by Rush, which is 25 minutes, that gives you enough time.
I think this is the perfect opportunity to play the video clip then. So let me make sure I can find it because I was having issue with this earlier. I really was too. Here it is.
There is courage in this room, all of you. And I'm inspired to be in this room because every single one of you is here for the same reason. You're here because you've adopted as a core motivation the simple fact that this world would be a whole lot better if we just made an effort to be less horrible to one another. If we took just 5 minutes to recognize each other's beauty instead of attacking each other for our differences, that's not hard. It's really an easier and better way to live. And ultimately, it saves lives. Then again, it can be the hardest thing. Because loving other people starts with loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And I know many of you have struggled with this. And I draw upon your strength and your support in ways that you will never know. And I am here today because I am gay. And because because
Okay,
I can make a difference.
we'll cut it there. I think I was getting the cut. Was that what I was supposed to cut?
That's good.
See.
I don't know if you recognize that voice. That
That
was
is Academy Award nominated actress Ellen Page.
Yeah.
most famously known, I think, from Juno.
And
Yeah.
Inception, which I think she's great in
God, I
Inception.
love that movie. I mean, science, I love that movie. Oh, my science.
Good word. Good golly, Miss Molly.
Science, I love that.
We had a pre-show conversation. That's where we're inside stuff here.
So this was pretty freaking cool. I think
Yeah.
there were some people who suspected that she may be gay because I heard a lot of rumors.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of things posted on social media and whatnot. At the same time, I never really thought about it, but I didn't care either.
No.
So, I mean, for me, it was just God, it was I mean, seriously, she just decided to come out to a room full of people. Granted, she was in a room full of friendly people.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
It dominated the trending topics on social media all Valentine's Day because the speech was done on Valentine's Day. And I watched it and was really blown away, and I thought it was wonderful. And I think it's so cool that we can live in an era now where we can have institutions like Human Rights Campaign to give artists and philanthropists and innovators a platform by which to say, hey, I'm a part of this community, and I love being a part of this society that's inclusive and that is loving. And I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's even cooler because this is Ellen Page, and she's become relatively. I mean, she's amongst. I guess amongst your generation, Justin. I mean,
Yeah.
she's made a huge impact. I mean, she's got a lot of fans, and she's
Yeah.
come out, and I think it's no different than. What's the guy's name who did Doogie Howser?
Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, so Neil Patrick Harris, I mean, he's not a guy that you just automatically look at and think, oh, that is gay, because that stereotype is there. So it was, I mean, to me, it was huge. And the fact is she's a beautiful young woman, and she's just, I mean, I wouldn't think of her any different than my sister kind of thing.
Yeah, and she's extraordinarily talented, and her speech was very nice, and she doesn't, she's an actress, and so the speech does come off like it's building up to that moment. But when it does, she's very, very humble about it, and she's very gentle about it. And I think that's the way you want to do it. And I was very, very happy that happened for her. And I like to think that I love that we can live in a free society that gives people the opportunity to do that. And that's what I geek out to every day. So I love it.
It was. It gave me shivers, for one, when she said it, because you could hear it in her voice. I don't care if she is an actor or not. You could hear it in her voice that there's that moment of, I'm going to say it now.
Oh my God,
and then
I'm really going to say this.
Here it is, it's coming. So for me, that was monumental, and I'm hoping monumental even further for the generations who are coming after us, who are going to watch the older generations. It sounds so horrible to say this, but disappear and things change.
No, and I think the other thing, too, and we talked about this with Michael Sam as well, is that she's setting a precedent. She talks about being in Hollywood for a long time. She sort of had to lie by omission. And the thing that I really liked about it is that she's setting a precedent for young actresses in Hollywood that it is okay to be openly gay, and you can be openly gay and be successful, and that you will be judged by your talent and by your grace rather than who you love. And I think that's a really good step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And that's where we hope to get one day.
And that amusingly ties right back into us as well, just because you feel like you have to lie by omission by not saying who you are as far as what you believe. Which was, I mean, when she said that, I was like, God dang, that's like,
and maybe that's
so many people.
Right. And I'm happy for her definitely for doing this. And I think that may be part of the I had an emotional reaction to this.
Oh, I did too.
Oh yeah, it hit me hard.
And it was just her it was so eloquent. She spoke so beautifully, and you could tell this meant a lot to her.
Oh yeah.
You could tell she just wants to be who she is, and and I think that I kind of, and you probably kind of maybe too may have felt the relation to our situations with this, and
Exactly.
for me it's just like, I think her doing that not only is encouraging to people that that are in the homosexual community, but people even like us, non-believers. I mean,
Yeah.
we should take a page from her book. And I'm getting
Nice
closer.
pun. Nice
I'm
pun, by the way.
I think as well, though. I mean, I'm getting closer and closer because even on our campus, there are groups that are starting to form. We've got a nice group of young people, students who have formed a secular student alliance, and I look forward to the group of people to put that out there, and I seriously look forward to the first discussion that is put on.
Yeah,
That'll be huge. Well, all the tomorrow will be is their chance to figure out how we can work together, which is really cool because we have a group of people on campus who, while they have their beliefs, they're at the same time open-minded and willing to listen to what everybody else wants to do, and are open to have a discussion about it. And I think that's the biggest, most important thing. And I can't wait till the point where I finally just dump the idea that I'm worried about somebody not wanting to hire me to do a job as far as my freelance work goes because they know that I've done a wedding for a gay couple, which I have not published because I just haven't finished it.
But see, here's the thing. If you keep going down that road of like doing it the way you want to do it and staying true to your principles, give it 5-10 years, probably most of the country, if not all the country, will adopt same-sex marriage. For the most part, I guarantee you there's probably going to be a Supreme Court precedent. It's going to be set within the next few years. And then you will be with a lot of work.
Oh, I think I'm gonna head that direction anyway because I'm really to the point where I don't care. As soon as I get the damn thing actually finished, the problem is I put a song to it that I shouldn't have put, and I just haven't gone back to finish. I need a song that I have the rights to use, and I will publish the motherfucker, and people will deal with it. And if they don't like it, then I'll have a whole new group of customers who care and don't care.
Oh yeah, I will say this. You know, when I became an atheist 5 years ago, there was nothing that was more freeing to me than be able to go to my Facebook page and put religious views, and I put atheist.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about it. I just put it. And I was so happy that I could just share it and be who I am and share who I am because I try to be as respectful as I can to everyone.
Great.
So that I can prove to people the ultimate thing that always becomes the debate, which is that you can be good without God.
And it's all about squashing that stigma.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with homosexuality. Like there are people among us that we know, like everyone knows someone who is gay.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Absolutely.
seriously,
absolutely.
and
one of my best friends is gay.
and when you get to know that person, and when you start seeing their rights being denied, you're like, hey, I know this person. Like a couple of guys that I've known for years. They live in Florida now, but they were finally able to get married. I don't know if they're going to be recognized in Florida, but they went up to Massachusetts and got married. And
Well, that will be extended now because the Justice Department just issued a statement that said that all same-sex couples will be honored by the federal government in terms of extending of rights.
okay.
It doesn't count toward the state,
No.
but the
That-
federal
that's what I
government
meant.
does accept it.
That's what I meant. I knew that the DOMA decision changed that, but I'm talking about the state of Florida.
Yeah.
I don't know if the state of Florida will recognize them, but the point is,
It's all the more reason to get Rick Scott out of the governor's mansion.
right.
See Mike Pence.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
I know these people, and I like these people. They're good people, and when you know more and more people like this, you realize, hey, I don't want these things to happen to them.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just as important for other groups such as non-believers to be able to come out and squash that stigma.
Exactly.
And that's the thing too. When Christians who are more fundamentalist, you know, I think this a lot of times they sort of think of homosexuality as this thing that sort of just like exists and it's bad, and they don't always tie it to people. And sometimes to get people to change, you have to personalize it. You have to tie it back
Right.
to somebody and go, well, wow, my daughter's gay, or my friend is gay, or my boss is gay. I mean, it's personalizing it. I think for some people it tips that balance.
Right.
Sometimes, but then you have other cases like this state rep or Senator Mike Delph of Carmel, who has a brother who is gay, yet he is strict. Like he just makes me boil.
And those people are willfully ignorant. And for the willfully ignorant, fuck them. I mean, you can't change them. You can't persuade them. All you can do is get them the hell out of government. That's all you can do.
Yeah, then you're going to figure out how to get people not to. I mean, hopefully,
People in this state, and more importantly, people in this country need to stop voting against their own self-interest. Which is it blows my mind that a party that is so funded by billionaires and industrialists and sociopathic, individualistic assholes is the party that somehow gets the group of people who are the rural working class. And the reason why they got it was because of civil rights. When Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law in 1964, he said, "I'm losing the South today." 65 rather, and the voting rights. I'm losing the South today, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I mean, it's like it's because I love God and I don't like gays and I love my guns, and that's kind of how it is, and it's unfortunate because we could have better people in office if that wasn't the case.
Sure.
Yeah, it is actually a really depressing notion to think that is probably the biggest reason, because I really do not think the Republican Party gives a shit about the people who are voting them in.
No, they don't.
No.
No, they don't. And it's not to say that Democrats are the perfect party, but you either have the moderate party of reason, which is the Democratic Party, or you have the batshit sleeping upside down on their wall because they're batshit Republican Party.
I thought they were the party of small government.
Right. Which is interesting to me because it's interesting how they talk all the time about their small government, and then they want to pass all kind of invasive laws with women's reproductive rights. Yeah. I mean, Bob McDonnell, the former governor of Virginia, who's probably going to go to prison, will forever be known as Governor Ultrasound. And so it's like, it's at some point people are like, I'm tired of protesting this shit. I shouldn't have to. And I think that's going to tip the balance. Because, I think if the Republican Party keeps going the way it's going to go, they will not be a national party for a generation. It's just the way it is.
I think it's going to... I honestly think there's a serious tipping point happening, and people are getting sick of the bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just basically what I am tired of is that they're using the platform of the prohibitive aspects of the Bible to try to... They're trying to enforce the prohibitive aspects of the Bible as American law. Such as in
the turning point. Here we have assholes in Kansas. Not everyone in Kansas. We just have we have assholes in Indiana too.
They're everywhere.
But a person in the House, I don't know exactly who it was. I don't know if anybody knows the name of the person who actually submitted this. It was turned down. It didn't make it very far, but somebody actually drew up a bill, House Bill number 2453. By Committee on Federal and State Affairs, and I'll read the very beginning of this. It says, "An act concerning religious freedoms with respect to marriage, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Kansas. Section 1, notwithstanding any other provisions of law, no individual or religious entity shall be required by any governmental entity to do any of the following if it would be contrary to the sincerely held religious beliefs of the individual or religious entity regarding sex or gender."
I'm really trying not to do this anymore, but sweet fucking Jesus. Are you kidding me? Basically, what this bill would have done, had it passed, would have created Jim Crow. For homosexuals. And the thing, too, is they say this explicitly applies to same-sex couples, but it could also apply to just single homosexuals, because in the language of the law it says if you support or you celebrate the practice of marriage for homosexuals. So if you're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So even people like me, that could apply to straight people too. I'm a straight guy, and if I went in there, I was like, I'm really for gay marriage. They could lock my ass up, or they could refuse me service somewhere just because I even just celebrate the notion of it.
Right.
It's thought crime. This is Orwellian in its nonsense.
These kind of things are becoming all too common in Kansas too. You're always hearing about some sort of measure that they're wanting to pass in Kansas that's moving them towards a rogue theocratic state. It's just completely ridiculous.
I don't know if it's strictly Kansas, though.
It's not strictly Kansas, I'm saying, but you're seeing a lot of things coming out of Kansas like this.
What I'm wondering, though, because you have places like Kansas, you have places like Oklahoma, there's Texas, there's a lot of the southern states. I'm wondering if even Indiana, because they want to define marriage as between a man and a woman with HJR3. I'm wondering if these things are happening because people feel like they're losing what they've had their own, their own power for so long.
They're losing their privilege. At the end of the day, these are people who are losing their privilege, and they are acknowledging that the one demographic that every national politician had to win an election was the middle-aged white male vote. and now you don't have to.
Yeah.
We live in a world where Obama lost that demographic twice and whooped both McCain and Romney's ass in both of those elections because our country's becoming more diverse, it's becoming more integrated. It's not the white bread stuff that has always been there, and they're losing ground, and they know that their time is up to a certain extent.
And things like this are reactions to that. They're extreme reactions to this loss of privilege.
Same thing with the nonsense that's going on in Missouri.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go quite there yet.
Okay.
You're moving too fast for me.
Yeah.
I do want to say I wanted to read A on line 8.
Yeah.
This is I had thought about going through a few of these. I don't want to spend too much time on it because there's a lot of ridiculousness in here. But basically, Part A says they do not have to provide any services, accommodations, advantages, facilities, goods, or privileges, provide counseling, adoption, foster care, and other social services, or provide employment or employment benefits related to the celebration of any marriage, domestic partnership, civil union, or similar arrangement. I mean, I think that's what it comes.
That borderlines on illegal, because if these people live in the state of Kansas and they're taxpayers and then they want to have those benefits received, that is withholding their own money.
That's what cracks me up. These are tax-paying citizens, and you're willing to shut them out because your belief is bullshit.
Right.
What it comes down to. There were some others. I don't know. Were there any that you actually saw, Keith, that... I don't know if maybe we should skip over it, but I'll definitely put the link up on the show so that people can read through this because it was ridiculous, and I'm glad that it was shot down almost immediately. And in fact, I think it was shot down by the Republican leader.
Yeah, it was.
That's
which
good.
made me happy.
Yeah.
So I suppose we can go ahead and lead into
sorry,
that.
I was trying to do a segue for you, good sir, because I know time is of the essence, but yeah.
We I don't know, Keith, do you want to take this? This was I think this kind of rides into your alley a little bit.
Because I'm a humanities person, I'm an historian.
Me too.
And
I'm
so
a bit more on the same
let's
side
have
as
the scientist,
yes.
because I love Keith's rants about evolution. Love them. Love them.
Well, I promised in the last show that I wouldn't go too into this, but this between the last show and today, this story popped up: Missouri bill to create parental warning requirement to teach evolution. So
if you could have seen the look on Keith's face, he just like his eyes snarled. He didn't even make a noise.
If only he had done the hand, he would have had the perfect Picard face palm.
So I'm not actually going to go into my whole explanation of what evolution is and why it's true
Because
today.
we've done it over and over again.
Yeah, but
Read a book if you don't think so.
right.
Read a damn book.
But what we should address in this situation is this can't be something that happens in these states, because think about the preparation of children going into the next level of education. They're going to hit a biology class when they go to college, they're going to get into biology knowing nothing about the foundation of modern biology.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Basically, I believe it was Stephen Jay Gould who had said that trying to teach biology without evolution is like trying to teach math without algebra or something like that. And
I always use the analogy
or
of
addition, whatever.
I always use the analogy of trying to teach biology without evolution is like trying to teach English without Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it's we can't remove something that, this is not about what someone believes in. This is about years and years of observation, years and years of testing. This is about things that we can demonstrate.
For some reason.
We can demonstrate these things. We can demonstrate them not only through the fossil record, we can demonstrate them through genetics, we can demonstrate them through aspects of geology like plate tectonics. We can create these things in labs. We can have bacteria that can live in different environments that they've had to adapt to because their lifespans are shorter. We can demonstrate evolution. We can observe it. Obviously we can't observe one species transitioning into another because it takes such a long time for that to happen. But this has to be something.
What is the basic of the story here? What is it that they're doing? I don't think we've mentioned what they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, it's in the title. They're trying to create a parental warning requirement. Basically, if there is going to going to be evolution taught in a biology classroom, and also parents actually get to review the educational material
I was
before.
about to say.
Yeah.
That blows my mind because that never happens. I mean, it's like that is so like I think parents should have a right to review things their children are learning. I have no problem with that.
Sure.
But what I do have a problem with is this idea that parents who are probably not even remotely studied or interested in biology or biological theory or evolutionary theory
Right.
get to make a decision like that. And the thing is and the thing I have a real problem is I have a biologist friend who is doing some cool things on Facebook, and she was talking about
I know
what
you're
is a theory. Well, and she's like, is it A, B, C, or D? And I said, well, the answer is A, because theories have to be falsifiable. The idea that God or whatever created the earth in 6 days is not falsifiable. It's
Right.
not based on empiricism. It's not based on evidence. It's not based on argumentation logic. It is based purely on belief.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this? If they're
can't
going to
test the
pass,
prediction.
if they're going to pass, if they're going to pass this law, let's have a law passed in Missouri too that says for every church institution, the atheist community of Missouri can go in. The Secular Student Alliance at a college there can put stickers, parental warnings at every church group saying, you know, this may be harmful to your physical health. This may be harmful to relationships.
Right.
This may be harmful to family life. You know, and let's make sure your parents get to evaluate everything you bring home
Right.
from Sunday school, including the stuff about the fact that, you know, if you get too snippy with mommy and daddy, they can stone you to death.
Oh my God.
Right. That's awesome. Well, on top of that, again, we've got people that are like sowing these seeds of doubt in people that there's an actual controversy or there's an
I know.
actual discussion going on in the scientific community. There is no
None.
debate going on over evolution. This
None.
is basically settled science that we have here.
There's none.
That's-
And there
that's the
isn't-
problem.
And there's really not much in climate change either.
No,
This is
you're
the
right.
problem. I mean,
I want to get into that in an episode here soon. Not today, but
the whole
Marshall
idea, though,
Blackburn
that I mean, seriously, creationism is on the rise, though, and that's the situation here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's coming down to, and it is. Why?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, again, this is libertarianism fucking up the country. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you have these voucher programs and these private schools that are undermining the public school system. And when they can come in and they can teach creationism with no problem, and there are schools in our state
Yes.
that are given voucher
Yep.
taxpayer money to teach nonsense to children,
Right.
that undermines good quality education. And quite frankly, this happens in places where public education isn't as well defended. And that's the thing that sucks.
I think we talked about the vouchers 2 or 3 shows ago, right?
Possibly.
Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Pence needs to be removed.
Oh, sure.
The fact that
sure
he
does.
created a whole department to screw over the democratically elected Secretary of Education.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
From these small government fuckers. Like, that's the thing that just pisses me off to no end.
Let's just spend some more money and make sure that Glenda Ritz can't do her job that she was elected to do.
But this is the same thinking that, you know, we're going to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act 42 times and waste $6 million of taxpayer money to do it, instead of actually doing something that could make it better.
Maybe we should quit the rant there.
Well, I think that this rise in creationism. I don't even know if it's a rise. I just think it's more noise that's coming from people. Again, this could stem back to what we discussed earlier of people losing privilege and feeling themselves lose
Yes.
this grip on society. And I think this whole creationism movement is another reaction to that. They're realizing that they're losing control of almost every facet of society. And education's just
right.
another facet of society that they're losing control of. And they're trying to reach in there with these extreme reactions.
Yeah, they're never moderate.
I mean-
They're always absolutely balls to the wall extreme. They're never
Yeah.
middle of the road.
Right.
They're always extreme.
Which makes you think about those liberal Christians and why as you like to tell, they almost in a sense allow it to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is that that's the bigger problem with liberal Christians, too, is this idea that when they, regardless of how they feel about it, they're still lumped in with the fundamentalists, creationists, because they can still consider themselves Christians. And that comes with baggage. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but it does. And you have to live with that baggage.
They're contributing to keeping that whole mythos alive. They're contributing to keeping. They're basically validating fundamentalism by associating themselves with them and sharing that religion. you're right. You and I agree on the liberal Christian point. I don't dislike liberal Christians. Don't get me
either.
wrong.
I don't
but
either.
Oh,
but
absolutely
they
not.
can,
We have very good friends.
And personally,
they just frustrate me.
Personally, I like them better. Idealistically, I don't.
Yes, absolutely.
It's an ideological thing. It's not a personal thing.
It's more of like it's more of a frustration thing with
Yeah.
me. I mean, it's just like you said earlier. You're so close.
You're right there. You are right there. You're almost right on the nuggets. Why can't you get this done? Like that's my thing.
And
because that's what I did.
We need them, and we need them on our side in things like this.
Yes.
This bill in Missouri. We need people that are going to fight things like this. We need the people who are going to fight things like HGR3. But
And just wait, in less than a month, I think, Cosmos.
Yes.
The Cosmos.
Dude.
I hope that
Putting
makes.
science in the
You
face of
never
the
know
ignorant.
how many people that are right on the edge are going to watch that show and just become fascinated with
Oh,
science
man, I
and do
hope
further
so.
research. I hope.
And there was a time in this country where like scientists were fucking rock stars.
Yeah.
Like that's how the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, they were like that. And we created a culture of innovation and scientific ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Now you got Snooki.
And now you've got Snooki. And it's not necessarily her fault. I think the bigger problem is that we stop. I like what Neil deGrasse Tyson said.
We stopped
dreaming.
Yep. I was going to just say, everyone out there, immediately YouTube the Neil deGrasse Tyson.
We stopped
dreaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's put. I mean, it's obviously he had said this at some kind of a conference, but this particular video is set to music and wonderful imagery of us going to the
It
moon
was him
and things like
speaking
that.
in front of a House committee on science and technology. And the thing that he made a really good point of is, and the problem with this Missouri law and a lot of other laws, because biologists are hired by NASA to do work, and geologists are too, is that what put America on top was our good, fantastic, quality science and technology education in this country so that we could develop innovative systems and technology that no one else in the world had. That's why these jobs stayed here, was because no one else knew how to do it.
Right.
And we can do that again. But again, if you keep letting these things like it happened in Missouri, if you keep letting this stuff happen, then we won't have that culture of innovation anymore.
That's right. And
Go ahead.
and we have actual leaders of our country that are planting these ideas in people's heads through what I have said before. I consider a propaganda wing for the Republican Party.
Oh yeah.
Fox News.
Yeah.
They're trying to plant these ideas in these people's heads that there is a debate on climate change. There is a debate on evolution. Don't trust these scientists. It's just everyone is all too happy to reap the benefits of science, yet lambast science in the face of that. And
People
I
don't.
think-
I think sometimes deep down, people don't like to admit when there are other people that are smarter than them.
I agree
Could
with
be,
you,
could
and
be.
I think that this also goes toward another Neil deGrasse Tyson video. You can Google naming rights, and he will talk about the whole idea. I mean, what's happening in Missouri and other parts of the country when it comes to creationism is the same thing that happened in the Middle East.
and how they got into this dark age that they're experiencing now.
Exactly, they let fundamentalism take over. This was a crossroads of information that happened, and then fundamentalism took over, and all of a sudden you have billions of Muslims and very little Nobel Peace Prize winners, and then you have little groups of people and lots of Nobel Peace Prize winners.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing too. And the thing about Islam too is that it's like, I can't remember the specific person's name, but all of that started from one person who had lived in northern Africa during the 12th century, who started the road to fundamentalism for Islam. It was one person who started the cultural shift.
Sometimes you find someone that's charismatic.
Yeah.
And
that goes back to what you were saying earlier, yeah.
Yeah. And then I truly sometimes am curious if some of these arguments that are just floating around against things, like let's say against evolution, it just boggles my mind. They're so bad, but who is feeding these arguments to these people? Like
Well,
the
yeah.
whole one about the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh, I actually had a teacher in school tell that one in class.
Okay, now let me go ahead. I have to, Mike. I have to.
We're going to go over, we're at a minute or an hour and a half, but we're going to go over because I want to bring something else up too. Take this for me for a minute.
Sure.
I have to go into the second law. Okay, the second law of thermodynamics. This is the thing. The Earth is not a thermodynamically closed system. we are receiving energy from an outside source. We are receiving energy from the sun. A thermodynamically closed system is one that is not receiving energy from any outside source, meaning that it can't continue to do work. So it's going to move towards disorder.
It's a vacuum.
What it's called entropy, moving towards disorder. Now the Earth, on the other hand, is constantly receiving energy from an outside source, the sun, which is what allows things like evolution to happen, because it can continue to work. It's constantly being fed a steady stream of energy. It is not a thermodynamically closed system. Your argument sucks.
And here's the other thing. The other argument they tend to make is that the universe is a closed system. How the hell do you know that?
Right. It's
by all accounts, it's not. As far as we know, in terms of the expansion. Now, I am not as well versed in science. I consider myself a science cheerleader, but I know for a fact that the universe is constantly expanding,
right,
which hints at the idea that it may not be a closed system.
It might not be, but
to presume that it is just nonsense.
Yeah, and I think most scientists do kind of presume that the universe is not receiving any sort of energy from an outside source. Because we don't know.
Yeah.
But the reason is because we do see certain things in the universe are moving towards that disorder, but that doesn't mean that we're not receiving energy from an outside source. But yeah, the universe may not be a closed system, like you said, but I know for sure that the Earth is not a thermodynamically closed system. We can demonstrate that.
And the bigger question is, how the fuck does that prove that the Earth is 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and that somebody put all of the kinds, which is just nonsense, in a boat? How does the second law of thermodynamics prove that?
Right.
That is one of the biggest leaps of logic I've ever seen.
And here's the thing: when someone uses that argument, I'd say, I can't say for sure it's speculation, but
sure,
I'd say 99.9 repeating percent doesn't really know what the second law of thermodynamics is.
Oh, yeah.
And for that matter, what I'm going to start asking people is like, oh yes, can you tell me about the other three laws, the zeroth, the first, and the third? Let's hear it. Like, they're just pulling this out of a hat because they've heard someone say it before, and they're just going to parrot this terrible argument. But I'm done.
Well done.
I was going to say, I had a friend post a cartoon on Facebook the other day that really just got at me a little bit. It's the ignorance of the Creation Museum. And they posted a cartoon of the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate, and they called it After Eden. And the question of the cartoon was, how much more evidence should have been presented to Bill Nye during the debate at the Creation Museum? And it shows Bill Nye looking at Ken Ham. Mr. Ham, I am completely unsatisfied. Answer, how much more evidence was needed to change the minds of those that saw and rejected Christ after he rose from the dead? And you have another guy saying, I still don't believe. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Creating slaves to an invisible thing that doesn't exist. I'm like, I read that and I saw that my buddy posted it, and I love the guy to death, and it drives me nuts that my friends are posting these freaking bullshit cartoons, and they're like okay with being ignorant.
Badass, dude. That was close to what I do.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, but the thing is
might get there
this fundamentally shows that at its core, Christianity, and for most matter of the fact, most religions are immoral systems. Mm-hmm. They tell you that you are fucked up, that you're born with a defect, that you're shit. There's something wrong with you. And no, there's not. There's nothing wrong with you. Mm-hmm. If there is something wrong with you, it's because of the laws of nature, or it's because of the laws of nurture. Something happened in your development that messed you up. Mm-hmm. That this idea that we are fundamentally defective and that we need something, and this idea that it's a God who created us, and he created us to be messed up, and then he sends his own son, who's also him, to save the problems that he created for himself. It's like if somebody was a real person in real life who did that to other people, he'd be in fucking prison. Like that's the problem I have with it.
Right.
It's fundamentally immoral. So even if the Christian God was real, I still wouldn't worship him because he is immoral.
He's a dick.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
He's a sociopathic asshole, serial killer. I mean, kill count alone, the devil is way nicer.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously the Old Testament God is terrible, but I just think it's funny that the New Testament is it's kind of sold as this this message of hope. It's this new covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it introduces the doctrine of hell, the most horrible imaginable.
And not only that, but the whole thing about Jesus being
Eternal suffering.
The only thing about Jesus being hippie, and then he says things like, "I come bearing not peace but a sword."
Yeah, that's
and
in there.
those who not worship me are cast into the fire and burn. Like it's like no, he was a fucking crusader. It's there. He might have been a hippie in some bits,
Then he does.
but he is a crusader.
Then he does batshit crazy things like
He basically tells his mom to fuck off in like
Yeah.
John or something
and
like
he
the Gospel of John.
curses a fig tree for not bearing fruit out of season to never bear fruit again because he wanted a fig so bad. Ugh.
I think what gets me is that you talk about the things that are you bring up all the negativity that happens in the First Testament, and then people are like, well, we don't listen to the First Testament on everything. That's why that's why Jesus came here and he said, hey, you're supposed to do this. But then that whole idea that
But you
Jesus
nailed it. You nailed
Jesus
it on
is
previous
is
con- yeah,
Jesus
go ahead.
is God though,
Yeah.
right? Jesus
Yeah.
sent him, or God sent himself. And then tortured himself. I mean, to me,
Sacrificed himself to save us from
it's
him.
all the same person, and it all came from. I mean, both. Well,
And you nailed it on a previous podcast, which it says in the Bible, "I have not come to
Abolish the law, the prophets." Yeah,
I've come to fulfill them." It's like, yeah, it's that's the whole thing. In its core, it is an immoral system, and that in and of itself should be enough for people to go, no.
what are you not getting? The
Yeah.
problem is, and we've talked about it before, I think the biggest problem in this country is the fact that there are so many people who are so faithful to their faith who have not read their book.
And there are a lot of people where it's a social system and it's a system that's all encompassing to them and it makes them happy. And my usual answer to that is, well, it makes me happy. I'm like, you know what? So could crack. And it's like, and it's like, that's the thing is it's like just because something makes you happy does not make it true.
that's true.
My skepticism.
That's true.
My skepticism makes me happy, but it makes me happy because it's true. I want to know as many true things as possible, and I want to not know as many false things as possible. I want to live my life as close to understanding our understanding of reality as possible. And there are people who just have no interest in that, and for them, I feel really sorry. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
1 hour and 41 minutes. I think we're skipping Right Wing Watch.
That's fine.
Roulette this week
Yeah,
again.
we'll save it for next week.
That's fine.
We found a really fantastic Right Wing Watch Roulette just because it's
It's just
Glenn
funny.
Beck and it's funny, but it's not worth the time to play it at this point.
Yeah, we wouldn't have much to say about it. It's just funny.
It was just funny. So I think we've covered a lot of ground this evening.
Sure have.
I want to thank you for coming. We were pretty. Keith did not know you.
Yeah.
You were our first guest to have on the show that one of us did not know, and it's been a blast. I'll tell you that.
I've had a lot of fun. I've been jazzed about this for like a week. I was so stoked because I've wanted to do something like this for a very, very long time, and I hope you guys will have me back.
Absolutely.
I don't know why we wouldn't. So again, you know where you can find us on iTunes if you're listening to the show. Most likely, you're listening to us on iTunes. You can also get us email. We would love to hear your thoughts. Tell us what you thought of Justin. Our email is beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com.
We'll get comments like that guy's a fucking dick.
we don't have. Actually, we've had some trolls try to start some stuff with us on our YouTube channel, but it hasn't really gone anywhere. I think you put somebody in their place, and of course they had the situation where they had the comments turned off, so nobody could reply to them because they probably had been beaten the shit with truths, and they can't back anything up.
So they pulled the Ken Ham basically.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's so frustrating. The Creation Museum. I think you heard that. Yeah, if you go to the Creation Museum on YouTube, you'll find that there are no comments because they can't handle the truth. So anyway,
I wonder how much hate mail they get, like in terms of like mailed mail, because they probably don't get emails. But I wonder how much hate mail they actually get.
I have no idea. YouTube.com/beinghumanist.podcast, Facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. Come find us. Especially, I think we like the idea of maybe trying to focus a little bit on some of our shows in a particular arena. Maybe not. Well, who knows? We tend to ramble as it is anyway.
Yeah.
But if you have anything that you have been curious about, want to hit on, I mean, we're not experts by any means. We're just average Joes who are doing our thing.
Concerned citizens.
Do not take anything what we say as absolute truth. We are searching
Never
for
take
answers.
anything for absolute
Because
truth.
it doesn't exist. It's a red
Right.
herring.
Absolutely.
Just like it's learn. Go learn on your own. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, we want you to keep thinking. I mean, that's what we've been saying, right?
Absolutely. Keep thinking.
Is there anything? Oh yeah, don't forget you can say hi to us on Twitter too.
Yep, it's
Even
there.
though it's all me, being humanist PC. So yeah, I guess we do have something to end the show on. I guess we can just go straight to it.
Let's do it.
Although I kind of don't want to stop talking. We just
I know.
we've gone for a while.
I do need to eat dinner.
Yeah. I'm sure my wife is waiting for me to come back downstairs as well. So, on that note, I think we're going to end our show on something that we were debating whether to end it on the last show. The great and powerful Stephen Hawking. Would you agree?
I do agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, here's thoughts from Stephen Hawking. There is no God. There is no fate. That's 504 dislikes on YouTube. That's bullshit.
Yeah, well.
At least people can dislike it.
This is true,
Wish
and
they should be
it's
able
open
to.
to comments. There's lots of comments in there. There's a good one. Been brainwashed by a mere look to believe what without willing to believe God doesn't exist. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Here we go. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. We are Being Humanist.
Keep thinking, people.
So when people ask me if a God created the universe, I tell them that the question itself makes no sense. Time didn't exist before the Big Bang, so there is no time for God to make the universe in. It's like asking for directions to the edge of the Earth. The Earth is a sphere. It doesn't have an edge. So looking for it is a futile exercise. We are each free to believe
what we want. And it's my view that the simplest explanation is, there is no God. No one created the universe, and no one directs our fate. This leads me to a profound realization. There is probably no heaven, and no afterlife either. We have this one life to appreciate the grand design of the universe. And for that, I am extremely grateful.